Responses from men only, please. Story 1. True love is about grand gestures. Said by my friend who proposed to his nightmare girlfriend during COVID lockdown to try and make the arguing stop. It's thinking like this that enacts expensive apologies when you should just break up, having kids when you absolutely shouldn't, or buying pets to save relationships. It's just stupid. Story 2. She's an addict and you shouldn't divorce her because it will break her heart, and it will be your fault if she overdoses. You want that on your conscience? My ex-mother-in-law said this to me when I told her I was divorcing her daughter because of several bad choices her daughter made. Story 3. I know you're heartbroken over her, but could you just tough out spending time with her? It will be really inconvenient for everyone if you make this difficult. Story 4. A couple of stories about the same girl from the same person. Listen, she is obsessed with you. You would be lucky to be with her. She was literally stalking me. You just need to lower your standards. Just date her and break up after a few weeks. I'm scared she will harm herself if you reject her. Story 5. My mother encouraged my brother to get into methamphetamine when his wife asked for some time to think about their relationship. He moved in with her for a short time and started drinking again because he was in recovery, and she got him into methamphetamine because that's how she deals with things. If she can't see it, it doesn't exist. Thankfully, his wife loves him and took him back, helping him get clean. Our mother is a horrible and miserable person. Story 6. My mom tells me to either break up or get married no matter where I am in a relationship with a girl. My older brother tells me, maybe you should just let one slip by, also known as get my girlfriend pregnant. My grandparents told me, I would be happier if you told me you met a girl and got married within a week than to hear you are moving in with your girlfriend for a few months before getting married. My dad told me, don't spend a lot on an engagement ring. Just have my niece make a ring out of some yarn. Some god-awful advice. Story 7. Just because there is a goalie doesn't mean you can't score. My boss told me this after I mentioned that I had a crush on a girl, but that she was already taken. Story 8. You are the man of the relationship, and you need to assert dominance and make sure she knows who is boss. I have heard this from 2 men in my life. Both of them have been divorced multiple times. Story 9. Do not get together with that girl. She is only after your money. Joke's on me, I was the poor one in the relationship. Now happily married 7 years later. Because of her support, I got where I am now. Story 10. Never give her the whole story. If you do, she'll be spoiled and it will fall apart. I have no idea what this guy was trying to get across. He was a guy that actually did well with women. I didn't and so don't understand. Story 11. People kept telling me that internet relationships cannot last and I need to break up with the guy online. We were in an online relationship for 8 years, living in different countries, and met once every few years. Now we have been happily married for 3 years, and it seems like I am the happiest in marriage compared to any of my friends. I do not even tell them because I do not want any of them to feel even more miserable in their marriages than they are now. Story 12. Don't tell her there's no point, which in their opinion is either because she'll never know or it's not a big deal. In my opinion, it's very important to just be crystal clear and transparent. Story 13. My mom has always been telling me to marry rich. If she wanted me to marry someone wealthy, she should have married someone handsome so I could have been good-looking enough for a wealthy benefactor. Story 14. At the funeral. Friend. I'm really sad to see him go. I will miss him so much. Some random guy that I don't know points to a lady. I couldn't get closer to her, but you should talk to her. Friend. That's my deceased brother's wife. Random guy. That is what makes it all the better, my friend. Edit. This was about 5 years ago, and no one remotely close to my friend talks to him anymore, mostly because he was promptly demoted from family friend to someone they don't talk to anymore, and because he moved out of state to who knows where. Story 15. It wasn't really advice, but I remember being about 7 when my dad sagely informed me that love and hate often feel like the same thing and that I'd understand when I was older. Mom divorced him when I was 11 because he cheated on her. I'm 25 now and still don't understand what he was talking about. Cheers, Dad. Story 16. When I was a teenager, my mom told me to have sex with anyone who smiled at me, so that when I met someone I liked, I would be good at it. Ooh, no. She also thought I should be flattered when I would get straight up assaulted because someday you are going to be old and no one will notice you. Story 17. Don't have sex with him for 6 months to ensure that he's the one. If he can make it, then you're good to go. It wasn't said to me, but from a woman that my friend was dating. It did not last 6 months. Story 18. When I was a teen, my mom told me that the boys in school picked on me because they liked me, right? Obviously, it wasn't true. They were just being horrible people. However, what terrible advice. Way to encourage someone into an abusive relationship. Story 19. I was test driving a car, and the salesman was making small talk when I said I was about to get engaged. He told me he was about to propose too, and my opinion of him was solidified when I said, "That's exciting." And he responded with, "Yeah, I guess." He then told me how he was going to do it, and it went a little something like this. Eat at her least favorite restaurant. Go see a movie she would hate. Bring up old fights. Make her mad enough that she tells him to take her home. Drop her off and say something mean. Show back up a few minutes later on his knee with the ring. You see, before you give them what they want, you gotta make them mad as hell. Treat them like dirt, and they stick to you like mud. You know? I just laughed and shook my head. I said that was about the last thing I would do, and he shrugged it off and complained about how long it would take him to pay off the ring. I've now been married 11 years, and he was married less than one. Just kidding about him. I have no clue whatever happened to him. Story 20. If two people really love each other, they will make it work. It is so easy to mistake toxicity for passion and devotion. Sometimes you have to accept that a relationship is unhealthy and do what is best for you. Story 21. Just follow your heart. My heart is often controlled by my penis, and the two get into trouble while my brain isn't looking. I ignored that advice, used my brain, married a great woman, and we've been married for 8 years in January. Story 22. When I was like 15, I overheard my dad explaining to my brother that he should just stop hesitating and just marry this girl he was uncertain about, because you can always have women on the side. Story 23. Boundaries ruin relationships. My ex-best friend said this after I told her that it grosses me out when she takes her braces off in front of me and sets them out in the open. Story 24. I went to work at Domino's Pizza to pick up my check the day after I proposed to my fiancée. Everyone was congratulating me except for Charles. Charles is a sad individual, a chronic liar, and has real problems with self-worth and work ethic. I do not value Charles's opinion. While I'm waiting for the manager to make a pizza and get a free minute to unlock the office and grab my check, Charles pulls me to the side to give me some advice. Don't get married. It's the worst thing you can do to your relationship. I know you've been dating for 3 years, but you don't really know her, bro. She'll change the minute you put a ring on her finger. Women's whole purpose in life is to mess men over and bleed them dry. I politely told Charles, who's never met my fiancée, to kindly mind his own business and to not ever think that he can give me advice. I don't take advice from a 45-year-old financially destitute person who has no property, no prospects, no respect, and can't even support their kids. Story 25. My mother told my sister and me, always be his ray of sunshine, always. Men can't handle bad and stressful things. Probably not the worst, but it's the first thing that came to mind. Story 26. Be a jerk to her and show up late. Then make little cutting insults but say you are joking. I was maybe 23 and had been talking to my buddies at the bar about a date I had coming up for the weekend. This old guy who was a regular just interrupted to share what was absolutely the worst advice ever. Story 27. X is a transgender female and identifies as a lesbian. If she wants to date women, you should stay together for the kids. Yes, she likes women, but I don't. Like women romantically, that is. Story 28. Real men want a submissive woman who cooks, cleans, and obeys. Your education will intimidate them, so stay quiet. You also need to lose weight and wear some makeup. Thanks, but no thanks, divorced auntie. Edit. Just saw the men only edit and realized what subreddit I responded to. My bad. Story 29. You need a man in your life. You can't raise 2 kids alone. From my new stepmom, who has been married 5 times and is currently blissfully unhappy with my dad, himself married 4 times. Sorry, I misread and thought this was in AskReddit rather than Ask Men. I am a woman. Story 30. As long as you call your girlfriend and break up with her 1 minute before being intimate with someone else, you cannot be labeled a cheater. I have never been unfaithful. Story 31. You love him and he loves you, and that's all that should matter. Coming from my mom about staying with my ex-boyfriend who maybe cheated on me, didn't want to get a better job, lied to me, and constantly fought with me. Solid relationship right there. Story 32. He is going to cheat on you. All guys think with their minds. Just catch him out and use the leverage. Ex-best friend. Stopped speaking with her completely after this night. That guy and I have been happily together for almost 9 years. Story 33. When I was a teenager and was perpetually friend-zoned, someone told me that when it comes to women, I should treat them mean to keep them keen. That totally goes against my nature. What I did, though, was learn the difference between being a guy who is nice and respectful to girls and being a nice guy. What I also found out as I got older was that it wasn't the fact I was nice that was the reason I was friend-zoned, but rather my lack of assertiveness and self-confidence was off-putting. Once I learned to be friendly and approachable and how to talk to females, I had no problem whatsoever getting dates and girlfriends. Story 34. I've never, ever fought with any of my partners, and someone in high school once told me that was weird and that I should start fights with my then-boyfriend on purpose. I never did take that advice. Story 35. Never change for anyone, my dad and grandfather said. It's a nice sentiment, but when you stop changing, you stop growing, which means you don't grow along with the relationship you're having. Being in a long, committed relationship will lead to changes in your personality, which is a good thing. Incidentally, they have both been divorced for refusing to change behaviors that were hurting their marriage. Story 36. We all have our quirks, and we just need to be mindful of each other. Theirs, and learn to live together. Being together is about compromise. Screaming in someone's face is not a quirk. Dealing with someone's insanity is not compromise. Story 37. My alcoholic husband's aunt told me to just become an alcoholic too because then it wouldn't bother me. This was said to me in a completely serious, heart-to-heart way when I was crying and at my breaking point. She firmly believed we would both be happier that way. He is my ex-husband now. Story 38. Don't ever give up on your relationship. I know you have to work at it and get through tough times, even seek counseling if you need. But sometimes you have to admit it's just not working when you've given it your best. Sometimes things just don't work out. Story 39. First time I filed taxes, the woman filing asked me if I knew anyone with kids I could claim as dependents. I said no. She then recommended I have a kid for the tax benefits. I was 19. She was dead serious. Story 40. My friend often tells me that I am a fool for staying loyal to my boyfriend. She believes that until you have said your vows and signed a marriage certificate, there is no point in loyalty. Story 41. Attended a wedding recently, and the pastor said, "It is not love that sustains the marriage, but the marriage that sustains the love." I don't know how he lives with giving that advice. Story 42. My mom. Men have to eat everything, but don't need to know everything. She hides everything that might be mildly inconvenient for her husband because he flies into a rage very easily. Story 43. I should lower my standards because otherwise I will never find anybody. Said during a conversation where I mentioned that I wanted someone kind and funny. Story 44. Happy wife, happy life. Boomers would say things like this and then laugh their heads off like they just invented comedy. This is complete nonsense. Make yourself happy and share that happiness with someone else. Sorry that it doesn't rhyme. Story 45. Just be yourself, stop overthinking things, and it will all work out. Her advice wasn't inherently bad, but when telling it to an autistic individual such as myself, it is terrible advice. Story 46. You would have more success with women if you were more confident in yourself. which is deeply and profoundly useless advice because the primary reason I'm not confident in myself is because I have had zero success with women. Story 47. If you really want to break up with someone, then ask them to perform the most sexually degrading or bizarre act, and either they break up with you or hey. Story 48. Had a friend tell me it is important to keep your options open while in a relationship to justify hooking up with random girls from Tinder during the pandemic, no less. Was also just in general a scumbag. Not friends with him anymore. Story 49. I was terribly unhappy in my marriage, and my mom told me to think really hard about it because I would be alone for the rest of my life and never have children if I left him. Gee, thanks, Mom. Story 50. If a man ever tells you that he loves you, just say thank you, even if you love him back. It's human nature for women to be more suspicious of men because they often require more sex than most women. We just have to remember that this is what makes a good marriage. Never say no unless you are truly sick, and I don't mean just a headache. Sage wisdom from my Nana Janice. A goldmine. Story 51. You should take her back. She really cares about you. From the guy who cheated with my girlfriend after I broke up with her for sleeping with several guys.